Greetings. This is Blacklight, and look like they're on the verge of implementing one of the last remaining stages of the King Alfred plan. I would like for you to pay close attention to this audio I'm about to play you. I've got this audio or tape audio, cassette tape audio of the King Alfred plan, Radio Free America, in the 90s, middle 90s. That's shoot, man, that's about, let's see, I think it was about 96. I got it before that, but I never did pay attention to it till around 90s. I think that's see, 96, 2006. It's a little over, it's over 30 years, you know. So we're gonna play a little bit, and then we're gonna come back and play some more on another day.
Simply because of the controversial nature, it led us to go with it at the time. We're glad we did, simply because now it is very obvious from the headlines that have emerged. This is a real policy. It is a real National Security Council contingency, and the similarity between the emergency, unquote, the 10 readiness centers and the 10 zones, and in particular, one wonders about King Alfred and Rex 84. It is our feeling that at this point, the undivided energies of those researchers who operate in good faith should be devoted to determining, among other things, just whether or not the King Alfred plan is in fact the groundwork for Rex 84.
I have a feeling, as a matter of fact, that if there are differences between Rex 84 as it exists now and what was the King Alfred plan, we will probably find that it was merely a slight shift in focus on the victims of the plan, and perhaps to include, again, as they mentioned, Central Americans considered to be dangerous, certain blacks, intellectuals, sympathizers, etc., perhaps not so specifically targeted at the, quote, the American Negro, the minority problem, as it would have been back in the late 60s and early 70s. So, but the substance very much the same, no doubt, and chillingly so.
Well, good evening. Welcome back once again, live in One Step Beyond. That, by the way, was once again from Radio Free America program number 32, originally recorded in September of 1987. Now, again, this is all in the context of what I'm afraid may happen in this country in light of its political antecedents and its political direction in the event of an economic collapse, and whether that happens quickly, as with the stock crash of 1929, or whether it happens gradually over a period of years or even decades. It is my fear that the economic crunch and the psychological and social dislocation will be alleviated by something along those lines. And again, as we contemplate Rex 84 and martial law, bear in mind my observation made first a number of months ago and earlier in the broadcast, that the war on drugs involving not only the use of military units and National Guard units to patrol the borders, but more ominously, in my opinion, the use of Defense Intelligence Agency agents in order to conduct intelligence in Washington, D.C. in black neighborhoods. Well, it is now the observation of a lot of people that it's turning into a war on blacks, and whether that war on drugs to a certain extent represents a creeping King Alfred or a creeping Rex 84, it remains to be seen. However, bear in mind also that this country's antecedents, not only the industrialists and financiers who supported Hitler, but the Nazi intelligencers, the thousands of SS men brought in at the end of World War II and put to work at the very core of our national security establishment, the Gehlen organization that we've spoken about so many times, and last but certainly not least, the kinds of neo-Nazis one sees infiltrating the state defense forces, the kinds of people who, under the Rex 84 contingency plan, have been projected for deputization. And in fact, if you study our history, and one of the reasons why it's so important to study our history and to study the assassinations in this country in particular, those elements combined to overthrow the government on November 22nd, 1963. It may seem perhaps fantastic to people to contemplate a scenario like this happening. It appeared equally incredible to people in Weimar, Germany. There were people like myself in Weimar, Germany who warned about what was going to happen. They weren't dismissed as paranoids or conspiracy theorists. They were called alarmists or conspiracy mongers. Those were the phrases. And I think people should bear that in mind. Also bear in mind that our news media are not reporting really, really important things. They did not give a fair discussion of this country's political assassinations. They continue to dismiss that as the work of low nuts. Whereas if we go right to Volume 5, in the 26 volumes of Warren Commission testimony and exhibits, we see military intelligence units from Munich, Germany, being infiltrated into the United States in Dallas under the auspices of an organization called Conservatism USA. We see those military intelligence agents combining with organizations like the Anti-Bolshevik Bloc of Nations, which in turn intersects heavily with many of the European fascists and the Gehlen organization in particular that we've spoken about. The ABN organizations like it, as we looked at in Radio Free America 15, neo-Nazis, as we looked at in Radio Free America shows 11, 12, and 13, the military per se, all combined to overthrow the government, and successfully so, in 1963, and yet nobody's talking about it. If they're not going to talk about that, it's a safe bet that in the event of a serious economic collapse, whether it happens gradually or whether it happens all at once, I would not count on those news media to tell you about what's going on. It should also be borne in mind, too, that one of the major Nazi tactics was something that they called salami tactique. That basically is derived from the notion of slicing salami. You take each step gradually. Each step is not very much worse than the step before, so that people do not protest. But over a period of time, with these gradual steps, you can move a great distance. The old adage about a journey of 1,000 miles beginning with a single step. Also, it should be borne in mind, too, that the auspices for the Rex 84 contingency plan were to be conducted under FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The person just appointed...
So, we don't have much time, so we're going to close this down. This is very important for you to listen to. Those who subscribe to me, if you don't listen to this, I'm going to make a series out of this. Because Donald Trump is getting very close to calling an emergency to bring in the withdrawing troops from Syria and Afghanistan to patrol over here. So pay close attention to these videos. It's no longer called the King Alfred Alfred playing. It's called Rex 84. But it's about to go down. Maybe the day is the 14th. You heard of the Valentine's Day Massacre? The Valentine's Day Massacre was on the 14th. It was Valentine's Day. Well, tomorrow might be February the 15th. Might be the beginning. Might be 12 o'clock in America, the beginning of a new day. It's black light. Stay tuned.